Hello and welcome. This is Henry Weston's Old Mate, the podcast. We are back. We are thrashing through these episodes now. We've got a queue of people out the door. We don't know what to do with them. They're having to take a little ticket like you had to at the meat counter, but we're getting through them, and we've got another exciting podcast tonight. First of all, before we introduce our guest, Stu, still sober, keeping well. How are you?
Still sober, and half a pound of liver sausage if I'm queuing for the counter, please. Yeah, very good, mate. Really good. Sober, mental health is good. Really looking forward to this one. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And I notice you're pretty active at the moment. I'm going to give your mum a there was a word that was about to pop out my mouth there that would have been completely
Don't you give my mum one of them?
Promote your mum's activities around charity is where
Yes.
I'll go with that. Oh my God, that took a sinister turn. She's doing very well. Walking all over cancer.
Yeah, she's walking all over cancer for March. 10,000 steps a day is her aim. She seems to be averaging between 14 and 16,000. That's for cancer research. You know, as everyone knows by now, probably my dad has been diagnosed with incurable lung cancer about 3 years ago. He's hanging in there somehow, but cancer touches all of us really. It affects 1 in 2 of us. That's the awful statistic now. So I will link her link in the show notes. As always, we do have a Buy Me a Coffee set up for Henry Weston's Old Mate. It allows people to contribute a small amount towards the podcast. It's not lining mine or Phil's pockets. It will just allow us to hopefully buy some better equipment going forward. And that really is about it. Just like, rate and review the show. You know, if you're watching on YouTube, drop us a like, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. On your podcast provider, scroll down below the episodes. It will allow you to offer a 5-star rating, and it will also allow you to do a written review. A quick thank you to my friend Peter McCormick over in the States. He's provided some new hardware, I guess you'd call it. So if I'm looking sparkly and clean, that's because I am operating on a new webcam. So this is the sort of quality you have to look forward to, guys. Thank you very much.
And just to clarify, with the like, rate, review, we only accept 5-star reviews. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't give us a 4.5 or a 3. We don't want that shit. Okay. Only the 5 stars. Okay. Let's move on to our guest, who is sitting patiently waiting to be thrown into the spotlight. So Stu, actually, you've got a good connection with Matt. You've kind of known each other for many years. So you do the intro.
Yeah, well, I won't say I grew up with Matt. We attended the same primary school. I probably sort of grew up with his younger brother, Dan Moore, but I've known Matt through our association really at Worth Cricket Club and around town for many years. I contacted Matt on Twitter. As you know, he's been open about a few things that have gone on in recent times, and he's agreed to come on. I, for one, am thoroughly looking forward to this. So let's hand over to Mr. Matt Ford and ask him to give us a brief introduction.
Hey everyone. So this is my first ever podcast. So this is quite exciting. First things, I'm really privileged to be invited on here. Stu, your journey's been incredible. You caught me at a low moment late in 2020 with a little gift, which raised my spirits quite a bit. And for those that don't know, the little gift was a American football kind of tops card of
it wasn't much.
Favorite team, but it wasn't much, but the symbolic that someone was thinking about you, right? So that was a really, really cool thing. I'm Matt Ford. I'm a Deal local, born and raised. I've always been the one that's lived overseas or lived away, and now I'm the only one that lives in Deal. So the turnaround of events
that's
for the
me as well.
It's been a strange situation that throws me where I am today, and it's been quite a journey through COVID and sort of becoming a bit more self-aware and thinking things through. So I'm excited and I'm open to whatever you want to talk about tonight.
Great. Well, you're very welcome, Matt, and thank you for giving up your time. So the scope of the podcast tonight really is we're going to be talking kind of men's health. We're going to be talking about vulnerability, and really centered around your story, Matt, of kind of how COVID managed to just kind of shake your world a little bit, change the structure, and a whole load of other shit landed on your plate as well. And I think it's kind of like you've just touched on there, gave you an opportunity to reflect and evaluate on where your life was, things that you needed to do, you know, making efforts to be happy, and those sorts of things. So I think that's kind of where we're going to go. I think, you know, Stu's obviously, his story's been out there quite a bit. So from a men's health point of view, I think we've both got things that we might be able to contribute as we go along. So we will do that. But kind of set the scene for us. You know, COVID-19 comes along, and what happens?
Yeah, well, COVID-19 comes along. I was actually on a cricket tour in Trinidad when everything was hitting the fan, as you do. But I don't say that to like show off. I mean, I was overseas and then things were spiraling out of control. So it was actually pretty much this time, 2020. And I was on the phone to the CEO of the company in Atlanta, and he's like, hey, do you want to just come over here and wait it out in Atlanta for a couple of weeks, see when this all passes over before you go back? And I'm like, well, no, I'm going to go back to Prague. I've got the dog there, and, you know, I've got like a team there that are going to need some leadership and everything. And so I think it's better that I get back home or get back to Prague, which was home at the time. I had visitors planned coming in like the week after I arrived back. And then as the week went through, it just was going, I'm actually going to get back from Trinidad. And in Trinidad, they were like, oh, it doesn't exist here. Nothing here. I think there were about 3 cases after we left in the airport. But I actually got back to Prague on the last flight into Prague before the borders closed. So I felt quite lucky, got back. And then I think I was back to the flat and the dog, and just then it was all hell broke loose. And so you're suddenly thrown into like survival. Okay, well, what's going on? Like, do we have a business the next day? Do we have the business next week? And we're in that sort of, you're in the foxhole thinking around all the things. So it's great in that it energizes me, or it's stuff that's like, okay, we've got to battle against this. We've got to figure that out. I took on a bit of a battlefield promotion and all of that, and, had to go and figure some other things out. And so that kind of appealed to some of my instincts, or some of the, things that I like about work, that urgency, that kind of dependability, that the resilience that it kind of brings out in you. But you kind of get through, and then the borders are closed, and then I'm like, well, wait, I'm speaking to the kettle and the toaster, and my house is my office, and it's 2 steps from my office to the sofa. It's kind of Czech Republic at the time, they were quite stringent on what our restrictions were, so we didn't really have much freedom. And then you kind of add in towards the end of April, my mum had a heart attack, and I was like stuck in the Czech Republic, and I just started to feel like the life was sort of unraveling a little bit at the time. And then the really only thing I had was the work to focus on, and all the rest of it. And I don't think you really appreciate what sort of toll that takes on you. But then sort of suddenly things open up in the Czech Republic somewhat. I'm not quite sure what happened, but some theoretical lawyer or whatever kind of challenged the constitution about how they'd gone around the lockdowns, etc. And suddenly, COVID's over and we're free up. So we have actually a fairly unrestricted summer, where you kind of think, oh, well, things are going back to normal. Summer was really good. And then I think the UK at the time was like still sort of bumbling along, kind of making mistakes, getting things right, making more mistakes. And we were just kind of free. And then all of a sudden it drastically changed again. And I remember the conversation I had with a friend of mine, Thomas, who owns a few businesses in the Czech Republic and is fairly well connected. We just happened to be in the gym, and he said, well, what are you going to do about seeing family and all the rest of it? I said, well, look, I'm probably going to go home. I want to be home for Christmas, and I'd like to kind of get a few things sorted out. We've obviously got the Brexit kind of being finalized at the end of the year. I want to see family. I've not seen my mum really since the heart attack, and all these things I want to get done. So as soon as it's, I'm able to, I will. But at the same time, the UK is not very, open. And so whilst we're less restricted here, I'm going to stay here for the time being. So I was trying to just pick my moment, really. And then about a week later, he sent me a text message, right, bro, you got to leave. And with that, I dewormed the dog, packed up the car with what I had, what I could load it up with. And it was which was about 3 suitcases, dog bed, some dog food, and hit the road. So
it was that. Sorry, Matt, to interrupt. That text was just in relation to you've got to leave because the restrictions are coming back.
Yeah, because Czech Republic was about to go full lockdown again.
Okay. I mean,
Sorry,
I was just going to say, just to play that back a little bit. I think just listening to what you've just said, and it probably won't be that different to a lot of other people's experiences, and that's not to minimize your experience, but I think people will relate very much so to that. But there is still some working out to do for everybody, I think, when they've got that reflection time and then opportunities like this to talk about it and share it. But you go from sunning yourself in Trinidad, drinking rum on the beach, throwing a cricket ball around a little bit, to the shit does hit the fan. You're back in Prague very, very quickly. You go into a job where you take on this command and control role, which you can only really do for a short period of time, where you're just telling people to do what they need to do, rather than kind of that soft leadership approach. It only lasts so long. And then heart attack, stuck in the house, and then things just apparently so fluid in the Czech Republic. There's so much going on, and that's probably in less than a 6-month period, right?
Almost 6 months exactly.
Right.
And then you're thrown another curveball. And, I think if you all think back, we always were like looking, hey, it's week to week or 2 weeks, 2 weeks will be over. And, actually this wave, it'll be fine, right? We always come looking at the next, surely it's just going to be flu by the winter and all the rest of it. And it just never kind of transpired. Right. And, then I get back to the UK. I'm meant to go and stay with, my brother, Ben, the youngest brother, who's just got a house. My mum and everyone, they've relocated to sort of Worcestershire. His house is not completely built because Red Row are delayed. I'm kind of driving back because I have to get out of the Prague. And then, one of my good friends, Mark, pulls, does me a really good solid. The time it was 14 days isolation. So I did the 14 days isolation, and then it was looking grim about getting to my brother's because he still wasn't there. He was staying in a caravan on my mum's driveway because she downsized when she moved up from Deal, and his 2 kids are in the house. He's in a caravan outside. So there's no room at the inn, literally, for me. So I'm like, what's going on here? I'm 45 years old. I'm staying on someone's couch. And my mate, Mark, is like, just stay here. It's fine. And just all of a sudden, I'm at the sort of the mercy of others, being strictly, very vehemently independent, can do my own thing. And then all of a sudden, we're thrown into another lockdown in the UK. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? I hadn't planned on coming back, but it's clear I wasn't going to get back to the Czech Republic anytime soon. So then I was going to, all my contracts, my work contract and everything was going to be different because, Brexit was going to come to an effect on January 1st, 2021. So all these things going on, I'm trying to navigate, and all the while still trying to hold down a job whilst essentially being on Zoom like this for 8 hours. Right?
It strikes me, I'm just picturing the terminal, the film, Matt. It's just, you're just caught between so many places. I mean, we won't get into detail about the film. If you've seen it, you've seen it. But you're caught between everywhere. You've got so many places that you could go, but you actually can't go to any of them. And that's beyond your 14-day isolation period, where obviously you can't go anywhere. But then you can't go back to Prague because it's locked. England is in a strict lockdown. Your brother's house isn't finished. Your mum's house hasn't got enough room. And you're on a sofa. You just said a vehemently independent 45-year-old man who's just come from a fantastic city where you can, you've got the best of everything if you want it. How that must have affected you in a hugely negative. It would affect everyone in a negative way on their mindset, surely.
So, just massively, because not only that, you're always like, oh, am I also a nuisance? I'm staying at a friend's house. Yeah. But, what could we do? You can go to a window for a coffee shop and you maybe go into a co-op or whatever to get some food, but you get up, walk the dog, wake up at 6:30 or whatever, go and walk the dog. on a weekend, by the time you've finished walking the dog and maybe gone and got a coffee for a window, if you can find one that's open, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Like, okay, well, what do I do rest now? Am I in the way? You know, can I watch TV in my mate's lounge? Like, am I kind of imposing myself, or have I tidied up enough? Like,
yeah,
you feel like you're just this sort of nuisance, and you're. No, that Mark was brilliant, but you know, you still feel like you're imposing and what have you. And his, you know, it's not like he had any other freedoms, but it's just quite claustrophobic, right? And all of a sudden you have all these kind of things you take for granted taken away from you, and you're like, okay, well, now. And then also having come back, I mean, I've lived overseas most of the last 15 years, so it's not like I have established friend networks to kind of get back into. So, you know, one of the things that I did do, and maybe if we want to go there, if there's more you want to discover here, but one of the things to do, set up a little WhatsApp group, found a bunch of people that wanted to go walking, like social distance, like because I knew there was a few other guys, you know, Tomo, a good mate of ours, you know, Stu, he was going through some shit. So
John Brown was in there as well, I think.
John Brown and Paul, who used to own the Stonehouse. And I still walk with those guys now, because it was just, hey, let's get out and let's just talk about what's going on in our lives and kind of get it off our chests a little bit. Because, you know, when you're internalizing it all the time, you just kind of beat yourself up, like, oh, what am I doing? How am I in this situation? Like, I've got no control over a lot of this stuff, and that's quite a lot.
So let's I want to start with the internalization and then build into kind of, because it sounds like the WhatsApp group and the subsequent actions that came out of that were probably quite a healthy thing, and almost not necessarily a solution, but certainly helped. But are you able to articulate kind of what you were going through mentally, what that internalization was kind of doing to you from where you were to where you found yourself?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm very self-aware of is the fact that I'm fairly self-critical. So anything that's kind of not good or in a, perceived in a negative light, I actually probably harder on myself than others are going to be on me. And if I can't kind of make something right, if I can't problem solve, that becomes a really big source of frustration for me. And so, being powerless, I guess, or just being unable to influence anything was quite I don't know, it sort of strips you of yourself a little bit. And that was really hard to kind of process. And so I just had no outlets for any of that. The relationships I have over the last few years are all overseas. They're not really, here in the UK. There are people that I can speak to, or just kind of maybe message through social media channels like Facebook or whatever. But it's not like I have this kind of network of friends where I could rely upon them and say, hey, they're in my foxhole with me. So I felt like I was battling a lot of that alone. Really, and that was quite hard, kind of realizing, someone who, it's not like I'm this big extrovert, but I've got a good network of friends around the world, and kind of that sudden feeling of loneliness, having lived quite this effervescent life, I guess, was really quite chilling. And
because it leveled the playing field, COVID, didn't it? And I think what we noticed with someone, let's use a famous footballer, let's use Jack Grealish, for example. It didn't matter who we were as such. Our social standing went out the window, and it's how you've just explained, you've got a fantastic network of friends around the world, but sadly, it counted for nothing, did it, Matt? Yeah. And you looked at the way someone like a footballer, they couldn't behave themselves. They were caught out after hours driving their cars, out drinking, partying when they shouldn't be. But us guys, let's say normal people, we were just locked behind our front doors.
Yeah. It's
What?
even quite ridiculous to think about that now,
Yeah.
and like we're ostensibly acting with no limitations right now. I got shoved along the tube the other day, but yeah, that's just like 18 months ago. It's ridiculous. And just that displacement, right? I didn't belong anywhere. Like I wasn't in Prague where I had most of my belongings over the last 5 years. I'd left the apartment empty. Like it's almost like I dropped the keys through the letterbox and figured, I'll see you when I see you. I had nowhere in the UK. My house here in the UK was rented out, and COVID meant that there was 6 months notice periods and all the rest of the shenanigans that kind of go on around that. So I didn't really have anywhere to go, and that was quite. Again, that just kind of reduces you, I guess, and I think I just hit this low where I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I don't have, there are things that are, I've probably taken a lot of value of myself through the work that I've done over the years. And that's where I've got a lot of my pride and a lot of my confidence from. And then but I've got nothing else that I do intentionally for myself. And I think there's this, it's easy to look at me, the rugby player, big shoulders or whatever, and skinhead. Matt's kind of this tough, resilient guy. He'll get by and he can handle that. But actually, I couldn't. It really couldn't. It was hard. And I felt like I was just trapped and displaced. Like I had nothing around me that was mine. Nothing around me that was home. Nothing around me that was family or friends. It was. You just strip back to your bare essentials. So it's not a bad place though, I guess. Then you start thinking around, okay, well, what do you build up from here, right? And how do I kind of piece these things back together?
So I was going to ask, so it's kind of, you've said it a few times around kind of the absolute lack of control within all of that. And we touched on earlier just kind of quite how much had changed for you, and I think the change of country probably amplified that somewhat. But yeah, the lack of autonomy and agency in your actions and the restrictions that go with that, very clearly isolation was having an impact, which it sounds like there, from a mental health point of view, and we may come on to talk about this, but the rates of depression went up significantly. Do you feel in that time that you were did it hit you in one, like all of a sudden you realized like, oh my God, this is happening? Or did you start to feel that it was creeping up on you in terms of kind of, this black fog or however you might describe
it? I certainly didn't sort of go and get diagnosed or take any medication, like think I was like depressed or anything, but there was just a sudden, I think, realization of my own mortality. Like you just kind of going along, like prior to COVID, the year before COVID, I did 175,000 miles of flights with business and pleasure. And Greta Thunberg's probably got a voodoo doll of me as a result of it. But it went to nothing. And so there was this part of me that was, as everything goes to nothing, is kind of part of me that's like, okay, actually, it's a bit of a relief I'm not traveling. There's a few things you start to kind of think about that are good about all of this, but by and large, it just kind of became this, wait there, I'm actually fairly alone. I'm actually struggling with not being able to take control of the things I would normally take control of, as an independent sort of person. And so I don't know if it was actual depression, but I could just see like my mortality revealed, like things that I'm realizing, things that I hadn't achieved in life, that from a personal perspective, and how much I was getting from like my value out of the work I was doing and things like that. And so that was actually a little bit, I don't know if I felt depressed, like I think a bit more embarrassed about it. Like, okay. I'm actually, when I'm stripped down, it's my work that is my value, that I give my value for, right? So,
go on, Stu.
No, 'cause I was just going to say, it's something that I, my experiences are sort of a lot based around my alcoholism, sort of my anxiety, stroke, depression issues. But it's something I always sort of like to ask about. Sort of this time period that you're talking about, you've come back to the UK, you've sort of gone in with and lived with Mark, you've started walking with the likes of Tomo and John, but then you're starting to get this feeling that something isn't right. Can I ask the time frame before you understood within yourself that something wasn't right? How long did it take you to speak to somebody?
I was actually fairly quick with that.
Good.
So, and it was triggered through Tomo.
Right.
Tomo was going through a rough time, and I don't need to kind of reveal all his gory details, but he said to me, "Oh, I'm speaking to this person as psychotherapist," and I was like immediately epiphany. Oh, I need to speak to someone. And I said, can I get her number? And actually asked Tom if it's okay. And if he was okay, if I was speaking to her when he was speaking to her, that there's no kind of, we're not going to compromise each other in any way, because we were talking about things. And he was fine. He gave me a number straight away, and I messaged Samantha, and I struck up that pretty quickly. I've had gone through sort of therapy and coaching before when I moved back from the States to the UK, and then when I kind of took, I left my job of sort of 15 years, I took on maybe more of an executive coach, but that was more like therapy. And I've always thought good things about the kind of the epiphanies you have when you just kind of reframe a conversation with someone that's got like just reflecting stuff back at you, or just helping you kind of understand certain things. And actually you're explaining stuff to yourself more often than not. But it was fairly quick. And I immediately struck up a Zoom conversation with Sam, and that was weekly. And that was really my lifeline kind of to start rebuilding a lot of things as it kind of we came out into the new year.
So do you mind if I ask, what was it about that created a lifeline for you? What was it about the therapy? Not necessarily the details, but the function.
One, talking to someone like that's, great professional and all the rest of it. All the professional qualifications aside, I think a lot of it is down to the rapport you build with the person you're speaking to, right?
Definitely.
And I happened to strike up a really good rapport with Samantha straight away. I felt at ease. I felt understood. Like, you kind of, when you think about what you're going through and kind of the embarrassment or the kind of the sadness and things like that, you're like, should I be feeling this way? Like, this looks a bit stupid, right? And her being able to frame that and kind of almost give me the support that it's okay to feel that way was the biggest thing, I think. And then just trying to unpick some of that stuff, and the way that she's just curious and inquisitive about finding things, and then triggering conversations that you always feel like an episode of a soap opera, or something you're binge watching. You get to the end of your 45 minutes and you're like, oh yeah, brilliant, I'd have just got that. Can we go on and then so this time next week now we'll talk about this. I almost got to jonesing for the engagement, but I also think just it's someone that was ready to listen, right? And everyone's going, and I don't try and trouble anyone with my stuff. I feel like everyone's going through their own stuff during COVID. It's the last thing that I want to do is just impose my problems on someone else. So I got that through the sort of the walking network with Tomo and Paul and John and all the rest of it. And John's been on the podcast, right?
Yeah, he was podcast number 1, the OG.
Yeah, the OG, and he is the OG on for many reasons. So that was really that's when I started rebuilding, kind of sort of piecing things back together a bit.
Okay.
Better.
So let's move there then. What does rebuilding look like? What is that?
Yeah, so I think so I start trying to think about COVID and the experience, like what are the positives that you can come out of this, right? I mean, let's just close out the pain stuff. Like it's very easy for you to kind of say, oh, I've got it bad, but someone else has got it worse, right? And so what? Like, you feel how you feel, and how else someone else's life shouldn't be a barometer for whether you should feel the way you're feeling, right? You feel how you feel, like, and that.
There was something. Sorry, just what you've just said just triggered. I've been doing some reading recently around this sort of area, and come across a kind of a theory, or a kind of I don't know, around positivity. But there is a negative side to positivity, in the respect of that they refer to it as toxic positivity. So you say, my mum's had a heart attack. Well, I've got two mums and they both had a heart attack.
Yeah.
It's other people have got it worse. You think that's bad? Try this. Or did you hear about down the street? And it really, that toxic positivity, it's almost like with a job interview. You kind of like, oh, I didn't get the job. Oh, better luck next time. Keep working hard at it. You'll get there. That kind of minimizes and reduces your experience of, actually, I'm allowed to be disappointed about that. Yes, it might be for, giving out teas at the local women's institute, but I still wanted to do that. So don't minimize it by saying, better luck next time, you'll get, keep working hard. And what you've just said is, you feel how you feel. And actually there is validity to be had around that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
completely. And so taking that forward, like, what is COVID kind of, what are the gifts of COVID? Well, look, life did get simplified, right? We kind of got rid of some of that baggage. It could be relationships, could be just bad ideas, could be habits, could be things that you just jettison. Like, you figure out what's important to you. I think I've come out the other side of that, outside of everything, thinking, actually, I've now got a core of friends that I know I can rely upon in the foxhole, that they've been there for me, that are, I'm invested in. It's not to diminish all the friends that I've got around the world. Like, I play rugby with people from all over the place. I've lived all over the place. Like, great friends, great experiences, and all the rest of it. But at times of need, there's probably a group around you, a phone box full of friends that you need around you. And I'm pleased that I've kind of got that. Because moving back to Deal and kind of coming back home would have been tough. Simplifying life, like appreciating things that you take for granted. We took for granted just going out and socializing. We're social creatures, like whether it's in an office environment, whether it's down the pub, or whether it's just being able to go and visit friends. Like, those things you take for granted, and like being through video the whole time on camera is not satisfactory for us. Actually, I think diminishes our ability to show empathy and a lot of different emotions around it as well. So just walking through that sort of portal of, okay, well, I can leave all this behind. What was good? I got to spend more time at home with the dog that I probably, and unfortunately I lost my dog a few weeks ago, but I had a great 2 years because, I would have been traveling. I wouldn't have got off that rat race of traveling around the world with work and focusing on this and not focusing on my health. I took on better exercise habits again. I got out of shape. I wasn't, being kind to myself in a lot of ways. And the one thing that always kind of it keeps reminding myself from the experience with Samantha and the counseling stuff, or the therapy, was be intentional about the things you want for yourself. And it's okay to be intentional and do things for yourself. You're not being selfish. You're not being you're not being greedy about this stuff. And I've always been the person of, I'm embarrassed if I don't buy the first and last round in a bar. I don't ever want people to think, oh, Matt didn't pay his fare, pay his way, or little things like that. Or, I don't want people to go away with a sour impression of me that I am only doing things that I want to do when I want to do them. And so I've always probably put myself out there, and in terms of my ability or my what I get out of problem solving. Someone will say, oh, I've got this problem, and I'm going to be more than happy to help. But actually, there's a lot to be said for, focusing on yourself and doing some of those, solving your own problems or figuring some of the things out for yourself. And so just being a bit more intentional about what I need, what nourishment I need mentally. That was good. I had a lot of time to reflect on that. And so I think that's, one of the bigger parts. But, it's the piece I think I still struggle with now. I still feel bouts of tiredness and lack of energy that I didn't have before COVID, not from any ailments or long COVID or anything, but I think I'm still going through that run, hit the wall with work a little bit more viscerally now than I did before. I think I love my holidays, love my time off, but then I really feel like I'm just restoring the battery to 75% so I can get through the next few weeks, as opposed to, I think I've drained a lot of the energy that I had, from the survival part of all the COVID and the experience. But I'm just much happier where I'm at right now. I think more self-aware, less self-critical. Actually, that's a bit of a lie, because there's a load of stuff going on at work where I'm fairly self-critical at the moment. But I'm able to compartmentalize things a little bit more. I don't beat myself up as much if I go hippo and relax and do nothing for a day, right? I don't. But used to be, if I didn't go to the gym or didn't go and do something, then I would, be, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you haven't earned it, sort of thing. And there's a little bit more relaxation there, just enjoying life as it comes. Probably got to rein that in a little bit, I think. Once lockdowns did end, and once you had the freedom to see people, I did that to the fullest. But I think it's just that rebuilding part, like figuring out what are the things that are important to you, figuring out like who your friends are, and just not being afraid to talk about it. Yeah. If I hadn't have said anything to Tomo, if I hadn't have just said, hey, should we go for a walk? Maybe none of this happens, right? And that's...
Can you imagine what Tomo would have said in 2018 if you were in the country and just said, hi, Tomo, would you like to go for a walk? Just even our perspectives of something quite so mundane have changed. Like the actual opportunity to have human contact in like a, shall we walk down the seafront, would have been met with some ridicule, I reckon.
He'd have asked me to go for, if I'd have asked him to go for a walk in 2018, he would have questioned if I was A, hungover, and 2, was there golf clubs involved, for sure. I don't, isn't it? It's just amazing. Like how everyone, we still go walking now 2-3 times a week. I'll go tomorrow morning with him for a coffee, etc. Isn't it? It's just those simple things and little routines and rituals that we, that I now know that what I don't want to give up in terms of things like that, because I think they're important to me. I need them as part of my routine. Leaving the Czech Republic as I did, I didn't go through any of the rituals and routines of saying goodbye to somewhere that I'd lived for 5 years. I left in the dead of night. I
left the Czech Republic on 12 hours notice in 2007. Yeah, the habit of kicking people out.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? But that was the same thing. It's like I got a text message one minute as I had to wait 24 hours because would deworm the dog. Yeah. And then I'm in a car and on the way, a 9-hour drive, like with all the documentation, so I could not stop in certain countries. I could only stop to refuel and all the rest of it. Panicking all the way. Am I going to get there? And am I going to get there? But I didn't go through any of those rituals. I didn't get any of those routines. And we are creatures of habit. We can create good habits as well as bad habits. And getting that kind of fresh air, getting the conversation going, walking, just feeling generally, even if it was just for that hour, it's like you felt a bit of independence. You felt good about yourself. You felt like you had a connection with someone, even if it was at 2 meters apart in blistering wind. It's very simple, but massively important. And it's not something, I sort of take lightly. I had Tom and Paul and that over for just some pre-Christmas drinks, and was talking to them saying, look, without them, I don't think I would have got through You know, I mean, I would have muddled through. I wouldn't have got, but I don't know how I would have navigated it if they weren't there in my time of need. And for that, I'll forever be grateful.
Yeah, it sounds like that impact of kind of the suddenness of leaving Prague left an imprint. I think that many people have experienced that. I think, from my own house. In fact, my wife was forced to retire third week of the COVID lockdown through ill health, and it was literally, "You're retired now. Don't come into work." So there's no leaving do, no goodbye, no cake, none of that shizzle. It was like, "You don't work here anymore. Collect your pension." And it's just like we identified, the reason I'm saying it is just to reflect it back, really, is that there was actually a grieving process for her to go through, which she ended up doing later in that summer, but it was kind of 6 or 8 months later. You know, she got to do the leaving do. It wasn't quite the same, but there was some, you know, it's an American phrase, isn't it? But there's closure around that had to be signed off. And I don't know whether you feel like you've had that, or whether that door's shut now, or whether you need to reopen it and do it. But it sounds like it did leave quite an imprint.
Oh, yeah. I mean, closure is the right word, right? You don't get closure on anything. And it's not like you also get to open up a new chapter either, right? I mean, okay, retired. Oh, by the way, sit at home and do nothing either. Don't worry about hobbies or anything, or, you know, activities. Just, you know, what does that do? And you know, I still, you know, go through moments and times like, you know, I'm back in my house in Deal, and still not sure if it feels like home yet, and still not sure if I have that wanderlust to go and be somewhere else or be overseas again. Don't think I could do that on my own this time. I just don't think that I could do another move like that. But at the same time, I sometimes think, oh, is this my final destination now? So there's always kind of that conflict going on. But I haven't had closure from the Czech Republic. I actually did manage to get back at the end of last year with work and see a few people, but it's just not the same. It's not like I don't get to go and see my local network, and I don't get to go and sit in my, you know, my cafe, you know, my commute home or whatever. And I do miss that office life. I mean, I miss the collisions that you have in life, where you can just talk to someone and say, "Oh, you know, I was doing this." And I was like, "Oh, what have you thought about that? And have you spoken to this person?" And iterative elements that you don't get. Like, it's not like you can sit on a podcast, or you sit on a meeting at 10 a.m. on a Monday and say, "Oh, right, guys, give me all your innovative ideas and let's do this." It's like, we don't work like that. We're not structured. Well, most of us aren't structured in that way.
We've lost so much in that office space. So I'm kind of torn between. There's good stuff about the Zoom meetings, and there's terrible stuff about it. But one of the things that we've lost, or there's a couple of things that we've lost, but building that social capital. So catching up with people, let me go and buy you a coffee. Let me open that door for you. Those things that you do that are just everyday stuff, but people remember that, oh, he's a good guy. You know, he helps me with the heavy stuff down to the car, or whatever it is. We've lost that, but every meeting we have it's a transaction. You know, you start your meeting, you've got a 10 a.m. meeting Monday morning. "Hi everyone, how are you doing?" And you're lucky if people are on screen, first of all, and then the response that you'll get is, "Yeah, good, thanks." Not actually, you know, "My world fell apart at the weekend and, you know, I need somebody to talk to." Never have I heard that response in the last 2 years. So it's made our human interactions more transactional, and we've lost so much from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, you know, I've worked in an office environment my entire career, really, and just particularly in Europe, I think there's this kind of social, this rapport, which is, hey, you know, we do socialize together as colleagues, and, you know, the office life, because, hey, if we go and socialize, or if we can go and get that coffee, if we can go and grab that beer, if we can go for that meal, it's going to serve us better for our team, you know, we move forward. And now it's kind of got to this, you know, where you sort of talk about that transaction, it's got to this, hey, you know, I spend my time on video with you each and every day and on meetings and all the rest of it. The last thing that we want to do is spend another waking moment with you, right? And it's, I think we'll never go back to the office full time, I don't think, or, it'll be several years before we do. But I think there's a lot to be said for what you lose in terms of that empathy, in terms of the relationship building, the social capital you talked about. There's just all these things. I think we need them, and we'll deny that we'll need them because some people are quite comfortable. Oh, I can go and do my lunchtime shopping, and I can go and pick kids up from school. But I look at it and I feel like sometimes I go through a checklist of events to get through my day with work, as opposed to, hey, what problem can I go and solve with a customer today? What can I, what innovation or collaboration can I get with some team members in the company today? What can we just figure out on a whiteboard? Give me 5 minutes here. All of those little events are gone, and
the wall of post-it notes that used to be the process map to kind of stardom. They've gone. But
it's I feel like we're going back down a negative the way, but I do believe that, and I think the reason I came on here is like that survive to thrive mentality, and like just knowing that you can turn the corner, and that COVID has taken so much away from us. But, by taking stuff away from us, it allows us to kind of now select the things we want to invite back into our lives and be part of our lives and part of who we are and how we kind of live going forward, right? And also reveals that we're talking about that vulnerability. Like, it's okay not to feel okay. It's good to talk to people. Like, I'm really glad that we had this opportunity to talk together. It's important, and it's not like I'm just trying to show off and share a story. It's like, I genuinely believe if I didn't talk to people when I talk to people about the things that I talked about, I would not have survived through COVID and through all the, the displacement. So
I think COVID being as extended as it has been now, now we are out of, Boris has announced that we are out of any form of, restrictions. But I think certainly I've experienced, the fact that it's been over 2 years now, or just over 2 years, the things in life that haven't hung around in that 2-year period, I don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it's not, there's not too many people, my group of friends, there's not too many people have dropped off, because my situation with at the start of COVID, I had a 3-year-old daughter. So my life was pretty restricted to sort of bringing her up for the age she was. But certain things in my life, certain habits that I may have been, be it eating habits or exercise habits or lack thereof, but things that used to be in my life, but they're not there now, that COVID has taken away in a sense. But looking to throw the positive on it, that Matt's doing with his chat here, I don't need the things that, that COVID has taken away from me. There's many things, I won't mention them. There's many things that it has taken away that has opened my eyes to the fact that they didn't need to be there.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think, Matt, you were just saying about survive to thrive, and it runs as a significant parallel to something that we talked about on Stuart's podcasts around his recovery from alcohol. Is he wasn't just giving up alcohol to give up alcohol because then he would exist. You actually needed to find purpose and happiness in your life beyond the alcohol. And I think that's actually, that fits quite neatly in what we've been discussing, is like the shit that we didn't really need hasn't hung around, and simplifying your life so that it's much less cluttered, much less complicated, and you value the stuff that's left is the stuff that's most likely to make you happy and get you through anything else.
We could have had a 3-minute podcast with that statement from Phil, couldn't we? That's captured everything.
We could have done,
summarizes really well.
Yeah, people wouldn't listen to just a 3-minute podcast. It's not worth downloading. So you've got to drag it out. But no, I think that might actually summarize the episode fairly well. I think we are running towards our time limit. We'll have to put more money in the meter if we keep going. anything anyone else wants to touch on though? We're not that rushed for time.
I've just got a couple of things, and it will be summarising as well in a sense. But there's two things I've got my usual load of notes in front of me from listening to Matt. If anyone's going to take it, or if I'm going to take anything away from this podcast, it's two things Matt said. Well, Matt talked to someone early. He understood something wasn't right, and he spoke up. He was brave, immensely brave, and that may sound strange because he talked to a very good friend of his, but that still took huge bollocks to say, look, Tomo, something's not right. Tomo turned out was the perfect person to speak to. That fantastic. But Matt said something, and if I can't stress that enough. And the second thing I want to just sort of say is something that Phil, you mentioned. Don't let the fact that you're feeling awful, terrible, not quite yourself, don't let anything else that's going on dilute that, please. You know, you could be feeling like shit today, and you could look at the television and see the atrocities that are going on with this Ukraine conflict and decide, I don't have it that bad. And you might not have it that bad compared to that awful situation there. But in a week's time, you will sadly still feel the way you feel if you don't seek help. So that's all I wanted to say there, Phil.
Yeah, no, it's a great comparison as well. Just highlighting the plight of Ukraine. What right do we have in our comfortable homes to feel any sort of discomfort or displeasure when that level of shit is happening? But actually, we do. We do have that right.
You have to. And Matt pointed out that, and it's something that we've discussed a lot, that I always say in recovery, the first AA meeting I went to, someone sat me down, well, didn't sat me down, but the advice that was offered to me was, you have to do this for you. You have to be a bit selfish. You have to get sober for you. Matt's situation and other people's situations is slightly different to mine, but you do have to prioritize yourself. You have to get yourself to a point of being happy to really be useful for others. And you are of use to others, whatever mood you're in, your voice, your presence, just checking in with someone on a text can do someone good. But to get yourself on, to find happiness within yourself, you will be so much more useful to others. So we do, sadly, or not sadly, we do have to be a bit selfish. That doesn't mean you forget everyone else, but it's all right to turn around to someone and say, I can't come back. You know, I said I'd give you a lift somewhere tonight, but I can't. I've got to do something for myself. You know, if you do that every week for a month, your mate's going to get pissed off with you, isn't he? But sometimes you do have to put yourself first, quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, I think we will wrap up and leave it there with Stu's final thoughts. A bit like Jerry Springer back in the day, right? Okay, so anybody? Sorry, Matt. I was just going to ask you if there's anything else that you wanted to drop in.
No, I think you guys have summarized it very well. I'm really proud of you, Stu. Like I said at the top of the show, your journey, like 5+ years now. So
4 and a
no, 4 and a bit.
Yeah. 20. This December will be 5 years. Yeah,
December be 5 years. I mean, that's an incredible, day by day journey, right? And especially given what's been going, what challenges you've been faced with, it would have been easy to kind of give in to that, right? And
I wouldn't have got sober in COVID. It would have, it would have killed me.
Again, really grateful. I mean, you don't know how much that meant to me that, you just sent me a little playing card or whatever.
Yeah.
Back when I needed it, or when I just needed to know that someone was thinking about me. And I think, this is important. Like, I'm really glad and really proud of what you're doing. I think this is really important for people, just to listen to kind of get perspective, to be vulnerable. That, I mean, if I leave you with one word, anyone listening to this, just be vulnerable. It's okay.
Yeah. Here.
Okay, so we will wrap up on Henry Weston's Old Mate, the pod. If you want to email us, we're on HWOM, the pod. If you want to buy us a coffee to acknowledge and appreciate, then we'll be very grateful for that. The link will be in the show notes. You can contact Stu through Twitter on @StuButts. And until next time, keep safe. Cheers,
Thanks
guys.
for coming on. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.